This is Wayne from My Tech News, and in this video, I'll be reviewing the Anker Power Delivery 20,000 milliamp backup battery. Now, this backup battery will set you back $99, so it's a pretty expensive backup battery for what it is. Anker does make a different backup battery that looks exactly like this, and it'll set you back only $50. Of course, there is some differences between the $50 version of this and the $99 version of this. I'll get into that a little bit later, but here's everything that's included with the backup battery. You get the backup battery itself, which is 20,000 milliamp. You also, alongside the backup battery, you get two USB cables. Now, take note, the two USB cables in the box. One USB cable is going to be a micro USB cable, so micro USB to USB-A, and then the other cable in the box is going to be USB-C to USB-C. It's not going to be your standard USB-C to your typical USB-A. It's going to be USB-C to USB-C, and then alongside that, you do get a power adapter with this thing. Now, take note, the power adapter is not your typical power adapter. It does have a USB Type-C port on the power adapter itself, and then alongside that you do get a pouch to carry this thing. Unfortunately, I don't have the pouch to show you on the video. I absolutely accidentally lost the case that comes with this, but you do get a little pouch you can throw the backup battery in when you actually travel with this backup battery. Now let's take a look at the backup battery itself. Here's the backup battery itself. It's a black backup battery. Nothing fancy, nothing spectacular. It's very long and it's very big. No pun intended right there. Not trying to be funny, but there's the backup battery itself. It's a little bit heavy and a little bit weighty. You can definitely feel this thing in your hand. And when you throw this into a bag, you will notice it slightly, but it's not the heaviest thing in the world, but it's not the lightest thing in the world. I think this thing is just made out of plastic materials, but it is a matte finish, and I do love the matte finish on this backup battery. I think the matte finish on this really looks nice, and it'll help it from showing dust, showing fingerprints, getting scratched up, and things like that. So I'm glad Anker decided to go with a more matte finish than a glossy finish on the backup battery. Now here's what's on the backup battery itself. When it comes to ports on this Anker Power Delivery, you get two ports on this backup battery. You get one standard USB-A, and that's to charge pretty much any USB device. So if you have a USB device that runs off a battery, then you can charge it with this backup battery. You just plug it in the USB-A, and then it'll start charging whatever device you want. And then alongside the USB-A port that's on the backup battery, you do also get a USB-C port, and you can use that USB-C port to actually charge USB-C type devices, and that USB-C port is also used to charge the backup battery directly from the actual power brick that's actually included in the box. Note, you can actually charge this backup battery without using the supplied power brick in the box. Just take note, it's going to take a very long time. I've actually tried using it without the power brick in the box, and I must say it is a very slow and very painful idea. So if you ever do end up buying this backup battery, do not lose the supplied power brick in the box. If you end up losing the supplied power brick in the box, it's going to take you a very long time. I'm talking 8-9 hours to charge this thing, because 20,000 milliamps and with not a fast charger, it's going to be a very slow idea. So don't lose the power brick in the box. And then on top of that, you do have a button on this backup battery, and this button on this backup battery is going to allow you to check how much power is actually in the backup battery. There's 4 LEDs, of course, 4 being the strongest and then 1 being the weakest. Once you're at like 2 bars, it's probably time to charge this backup battery. But of course, if you're at 4 power indicators, that means you're at full capacity, and you can charge this you can pretty much have full power on this thing. So how is this backup battery? I've been using this backup battery now for about 2 months now, and I can fully say that this backup battery is a lifesaver. And if you don't own a backup battery, I would highly recommend getting a backup battery. Maybe I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting this backup battery, because this backup battery is $99. The reason this thing is $99 because it is a fast USB power bank, which means that it'll take less time to charge it on the wall. They do make a $50 variant of this. The major differences with these two power banks is the fact the $50 version of this same power bank has a micro USB port on it, and it does not include the fast charger in the box, so it's going to take you quite some time to charge that thing up, whereas this one, it does come with a fast USB Type-C charger in the box, and it will charge this thing up very fast. It'll only take like 3 or 4 hours compared to like 8 or 9 hours if you don't use the included power supply. So it's really your call. Do you want a micro USB port on it, or do you want a USB Type-C port on your power bank, and do you want to be able to charge it faster with the supplied power supply in the box of it? So how does this charge, and how many charges theoretically do you get out of a device with this thing? Well, from my testing, I've been getting quite a few good charges out of this thing. I can charge my phone 3 or 4 times on this backup battery, and that's absolutely ridiculous. And who really needs that much power in a power bank? I must admit that this is absolutely overkill. Maybe if you're on a long road trip, or maybe if you're going to be away from the power outlet for days on days, then this may be a power bank to consider. But I think for the average consumer, they really don't need a power bank like this, because this power bank is fairly expensive, and I don't really know who needs 20,000 milliamps, but it is good to have more power. Of course, more power the better, so you can be off the grid for a little while, maybe 2, 3, 4 days, and you shouldn't have to worry about power, and you should be good to go depending on how you use your devices and things like this. One thing to take note, and one thing you may be asking yourself, does this play nicely with the Nintendo Switch? Because I know a lot of Nintendo Switch owners out there are looking for a backup battery, and some people are worried about some backup batteries damaging their systems, not producing the right voltage, right currents, yada yada yada. This power bank, the Anker Power Delivery, actually states on the back of the package that this thing is actually made for the Nintendo Switch. I'm pretty sure if you buy a new one of these, they actually started teaming up with Nintendo, and they actually got Nintendo Switch certified and verified backup batteries that actually have the Nintendo Switch logo on them. And I have used this with my Nintendo Switch, and I can confirm this does work very nice with my Nintendo Switch. I'm getting around 3 to 3.5 charges on this thing, but that is absolutely ridiculous and absolutely insane how much power you can get with the Nintendo Switch. That's got to be like, I think, close to like 10 hours of gameplay on the Nintendo Switch, depending on what you're playing. If you're playing an first party or even a third party game on the Nintendo Switch, a heavy graphically intensive game, then you'll know you get roughly 3 hours on the Nintendo Switch. But if you play an indie game that's less graphically intensive, then you know you get somewhere between 5 to 5.5 hours of battery on your Nintendo Switch. So you pair it up with this backup battery, and you pretty much have batteries for days, boys. And it is pretty amazing to know that this does work with the Nintendo Switch, and it does charge the Nintendo Switch about 3.5 times, depending on what type of game you're playing. If you're playing an indie game, if you're playing a AAA game of some sorts, to know that you'll have a lot of power. The nice thing about this Anker Power Delivery is the fact that this is a fast charger. It does got the IQ certification on it, and it is a fast charger, so it will charge your devices at the fastest speed possible. It also will help protect your devices from any over voltage, so if this thing surges for any reason, it does have protection on the backup battery. Anker makes sure that this backup battery won't fry your devices, won't damage your devices, and things like this. One nice thing I must say about this backup battery is the fact that you can charge 2 devices at the same time. So you use one on the USB-A, and then if you have a USB-C compatible device, you charge a USB-C compatible device on this device. One thing I will say, which I kind of am not a fan of, and I wish they would have actually done on this, I'm not a fan of them just throwing on a USB-A port on here. I wish they would have gave us 2 standard USB ports on this. I think this would have gave us more versatility instead of just having a USB Type-C and a USB-A. It's nice at least we got 1 USB-A, but I think 2 USB-As and maybe the USB Type-C port would have been a lifesaver. And come on, Anker, this is pretty much $100, and there's an empty spot right next to the USB-A port. So why couldn't they have put an extra USB-A port on it. If you look at the one for $50, they do give you 2 USB ports on it and 1 micro USB. Again, on the certification on that, it does say that one could only still charge 2 devices at the same time. You're not supposed to be charging 3 devices at the same time. But it still would have been nice if they would have given us another USB-A. It would have gave us more versatility, because not everything on the market is still USB-C compliant yet, and there's still devices like some headphones on the market that are still out there are still micro USB, and there's still some devices out there that are even mini USB that's very old. So it would have been nice, but other than that, I really can't complain about this battery. I think for the money, maybe you're better off buying the one for $50. It's pretty much identical to this one. The only difference is you don't get fast charging out the box. You don't get a USB Type-C port on it. And it does the same thing, and it is also 20,000 milliamps. There's no different in milliamps when it comes to the less cheaper version of this backup battery from Anker. Overall, I do like this backup battery, and I pretty much have no complaints and no problems with this backup battery. I guess the only complaint I can see people having with this backup battery is the fact this backup battery is one of those much more bigger backup batteries and a little bit more heavy compared to some other backup batteries on the market. If you don't need this much power, then I would look somewhere else, because like I said, this is not really too comfortable in your pocket. It will fit in your pocket and it will work, but it's not the most comfortable thing, and it is kind of weighty. You can definitely feel this power bank in your pocket, in your backpack, in your hand, so it's not the lightest thing in the world. Anyway guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.